Hi, everyone. This is me and Ricardo. We're back again to continue our software development into a decentralized open source social media platform that we call Ta'arafu. Ta'arafu is an Arabic word that means get to know each other. It's aiming towards deproductizing humanity and respect people, dignity, and privacy. And I'm, as I'm joined today by my friend Ricardo, my new friend. We're going to be building software together. We're going to be pairing and I'm really excited to work with Ricardo throughout this series. This is a huge project, and just a word out for anybody that's out there, just like Ricardo did. He just stepped out there and say, "Hey, man, I want to learn this standard," and I was like, "Hey, let's pair together." I enjoy nothing more than hanging out with engineers and pairing with them. So if you feel you got it in you, and you want to pair with me, just like Ricardo did, jump in and we're gonna write some code together. And I promise you, you're gonna learn a lot of stuff out of it. And more importantly, you're just gonna be able to kind of, like I said, you're gonna be able to build your own experience, because now I have this Git file project that allows you. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, did it ever show up on your profile, or is it still stuck? Do you know?
Well, I actually got something, but it didn't actually show the chart.
Oh, it didn't show the chart. Okay, we're gonna
No.
take a look at it then. Okay, cool. Okay, so what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be implementing a capability that allows us to remove posts from a social media platform. Okay, today, if you're on a Facebook or Twitter and you go and delete your post, there's absolutely no guarantee it's actually going to be deleted, right? They do something in the software industry that's called what, Ricardo? Soft delete, right?
Yeah.
Soft delete meaning, yeah, keep the record, but just put a flag on it that says don't show it, right? And as long as the user doesn't see it, then automatically that means that it's gone. But it may or may not be gone. Who knows how these platforms or what they do behind the scene? What I know for certain is that when you go and deactivate your account, they still keep all your data there. So when you
Hmm.
log in again, everything shows up, even though they said, hey, I have the right to be forgotten. The reason why Facebook is running into a lot of, issues in Europe is because of this, violations of privacy and human rights and all of these things that they do. I think their new solution is to rebrand. So I just heard that today. They're gonna be rebranding, so they're gonna give Facebook a new name, and that's gonna, all of the sudden, all the problems in the world are going to disappear. So what do you think about that, Ricardo? Do you think that's gonna work? I don't know. I I learned I learned the hard way, in this world. Just because you're calling something something else, it doesn't automatically, make it change. It just people know who you are and they know what you're doing, and if what you're doing is not in the best interest, yeah, Facebook's new name, grandiose, banal, or honest, I don't know. So anyway, they're gonna change the name, so we'll see. That's definitely gonna fix the problem, I think. I don't think so. Anyway, let's get to business. Let's give the world something better than Facebook and something better than Twitter and all of these platforms. I really highly encourage people just to kind of take a look at what they can do today. If you're a software engineer, you get to learn a new experience. You get to learn new things, but also at the same time, you get to learn about so many other things in here. So let's go to Tarafu Core. And Tarafa Core already has two open issues. It has update libraries and model suggestions. So I'm going to create three issues here. I'm going to create brokers. I'm going to go and say a delete post. So that's one. And then we also need a foundation service, and that is remove post, right? And then the other thing, actually, that one will be remove post by ID, because it's not actually going to have the post. It's going to have the ID of the post, and we're going to go find that post for it. And then the last thing is the controllers, right? Which is delete post. So these are three components, Ricardo. I want you to bear with me here. This is how we're going to be building everything out there. This is how we architect our software. This is how we build most of the stuff that you see out there. I'm going to share my screen here with you. I'm going to take us to the Blackboard, and I'm going to tell you what we're doing. You probably are already familiar with these components, but it's nice for everybody to kind of take a look. Let's say you have a database in here, and you have a customer, you have some client, some consumer sitting in here. So this is a client and this is a resource, whatever it may be. It could be a database, storage, whatever. What we basically want to do, we want to architect our software to fulfill three things. Number one, offer a capability to consume that resource. Number two, offer an abstraction layer that allows us to validate this resource. And then the last thing, sorry, offer a layer that allows us to validate this resource before we consume it. And then the third thing, an abstraction layer that keeps our validation logic completely, agnostic and free of all the dependencies and the resources are out there. What that basically means is that we need three layers. We need three layers of things. The first layer that we really care about in here is what we call brokers. And these brokers, basically, their only job, they have all the knowledge that's needed to be able to communicate with the resource we want to work with, right? If it's SQL, it knows about SQL. If it's Cosmos, it knows about Cosmos. These brokers expose a contract like an interface. And this interface has requirements. We use this interface for dependency injection, so we don't have to have our service tightly coupled with a particular implementation. So what the service calls is not really the broker. It calls a contract something that fulfills the contract of I broker. All right. And then in the middle here, we have what I call foundation service. And this foundation service basically runs the validations. It does three things, and we're going to talk about those in a second. But this foundation service here, what it does is that it goes and says, this request that's coming in, if I'm adding a new post, I need to make sure that this content of this request fulfills all my required field and optional fields and logical validations before I allow this to go to the storage. That's where your code is doing something magical that your database or your broker is not going to be able to do. And then the last thing in here is what I call the exposers. The exposers is basically a controller. In our case here, it's a controller. Sometimes it's a UI, sometimes whatever it may be. And this controller, all it does is that it's calling your service and it's offering a protocol. So it's turning your service capability into a protocol, whether it's WCF or UI buttons or API, RESTful API, to allow the world to communicate through that protocol with your business logic. So as you can see here, the one thing that we're really trying to protect is this guy in the middle. And that's the one thing that we actually test all the time. That's the guy that we focus on in testing in terms of all different unit tests and all that kind of stuff. Today, we're going to start really simple. We have a very simple task. All what we need to do is to build a broker, and that broker will give us the capability to delete a post. So when people actually delete a post, we actually do delete the post. We really remove it completely from our storage. So there's two purposes of this session here. We're showing the world really how you're supposed to build, human respecting, dignifying service by not lying to people and telling them, oh, when we're deleting it, we're not just marking it as deleted, we're actually removing the record. So here's the deal, my friend. You're going to be writing the broker, and I will be guiding you through that experience. It's going to be really, really simple. Don't worry, I am here for you, whatever you need. Go ahead and share your screen, and let's write that broker. I'll tell you, I'll walk you through every single step of the way, and then maybe we'll have a little conversation, and then we'll wrap it up and start with the foundation service tomorrow. Go ahead.
All right.
All right, here is Ricardo. All right, there you go. Okay. So here's the deal. Let's start from the bottom. Let's go to the master branch, make sure we pull in the latest and greatest, from our master branch. I know, Mahdi and I are also doing a little bit of work there, so the code is going to be changing all the time. All right. Let's sync up this guy. Yep. Yep. Okay, you good?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's create a new branch and let's call it this users and then your username and then brokers dash posts dash delete. So you put in the category and then the entity and then the action.
Brokers.
Brokers dash posts dash
Post.
delete.
Got it. You can see it. Yeah.
Yep, users, Ricardo, Cruz, and then brokers dash post. Perfect, perfect. Now let's head up to the brokers folder And then let's open up the storages folder. And then let's create this. Open up create a new interface and call your interface this iStorage. Actually, you already have post interface. So just expand iStorage broker interface. And then go into that iStorage broker.post. That's the partial class. And let's add a new contract in here. And this new contract method is what we're going to call a delete post async. So it returns a value task of a post, right? Yep, and then delete post async. It says delete because that's the language of the technology that's interfacing with. It's interfacing with SQL, then it may as well do that. Okay, and we're passing it a post, an entire post. Yep.
Gotcha.
Now here's the deal. We can't actually complete this task without another broker that we need, which is select post by ID. Because when you're trying to delete, people are gonna pass you the ID, and we're gonna need to pull in by that ID. So here's what we can do, my friend. Let's do this. Let's start first by select post by ID async. So add another contract on top of this and call it just select post by ID async.
So it would be an
Yep,
queryable
value
as well,
task.
right? Oh,
Yep,
value
yep,
task.
value task. And then post. And then select post by ID async. Yep, and then pass in a post ID in there. What's the post ID? It's a GUID. So we're gonna pass in a GUID and then post ID. Sounds good. Okay, we need a reference, pull in the system reference there. And then here's the deal. When we create these methods, we have to make sure that we follow the CRUD order. So you start with insert, select all, and then select by ID, and then update, and then delete. We don't have update here, so delete is gonna take its place. Cool? Good?
Yeah.
And we don't need that empty line because these are single liners, so we can take that empty, yeah, and then take the empty line on line 19 as well.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, perfect. We have two methods that we need to implement here because that's what fulfills our task. Let's go to the concrete part. Let's go to the implementation for the concrete part. Okay, there you go. And then let's first implement select post by ID. Right under select all posts, let's just create public async value task and then
Value task.
yep, post, right? Post by ID. Async. By ID async. We probably forgot to say that in the other one, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let me just check that. No, it's this one.
No, you did the right thing. Okay, perfect. Good job. And then let's call the variable post ID as well. So I'm gonna stay true to the post ID for the input parameter.
Oh, right.
Perfect. Perfect.
Let's just add this guy.
All right.
Go.
Okay. Now here's what we're gonna do. We need a new instance of the broker, just like we did in line 34. So give me a new instance using var broker. This is what we call a unit of work. So instead of relying on an existing instance, we create our own. The entity framework does funny stuff behind the scenes when it comes to trying to maintain a state. I don't want it to maintain a state. My unit of work is very simple and small, so we just keep it this way.
Oh, so that's the reason why we do it locally then.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
I'm trying to kind of, and this using that you're doing, it's a scoped unit of work. As soon as the work is done, it just disposes itself. It just clears itself out. Yeah. So in here, we're just gonna call storage broker and then pass in configuration.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Same process. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Now all you gotta do is just return and then just type this broker dot post dot find async. That's it. Return await.
Oh, right. Await.
Broker dot post dot find async. That's your guy. And then give it the post ID.
Yep.
Okay, that's one, right? Perfect. let's move. Okay, that guy is positioned properly actually. Now, where's the insert? Yeah, it's right there. Okay, perfect. Now let's create the second one, which is delete post async. It's just called delete post async. It doesn't take an ID or anything.
Let's see. I believe it was a value test as well.
Yep, a value task. That's right. Delete post async.
All right, and I would copy paste right now, but it's good to practice.
Yes. I was just pairing with someone this morning and I was telling them, nope, don't copy pasta, just write it by hand. There will be a point in time where you're typing it, we're not even thinking about it, but for now, let's keep it real.
Okay. So
Okay, so this is
yeah,
delete, right?
yeah.
So delete also returns an entity entry. So just do this, type in broker dot post dot remove, I think. Yep, and then pass
That's
in that post to it. Yep. What does this remove guy return?
so yeah, entity entry.
So get that entity entry, and that's why you're going to be returning after you save the changes, basically.
Okay. Uh, should in this case should I create a bar for this, or do I need to be explicit with the
You have to be
verb?
explicit. If the right side is not clear, like the right side is not like a new post, you have to actually define the variable.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the trick. Yep.
Yeah, so I always get confused of whether to use the actual type or the var. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So like entity entry, like
Yeah,
it
entity
suggested.
yeah, it will be basically, post entity entry. Post entity entry.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Post entity entry. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Now, we have this guy. Now, we need to save our changes because the Entity Framework is not going to let you kind of continue with your changes unless you actually do, save your changes. So we're going to have to save these changes.
So we broker save changes. Oh wait, I would have to do a wait here.
Yep.
Wait broker save changes. Okay, what's going on with this guy?
Now we need to return that post entity entry at the very end.
Gotcha. Post entry. Okay.
Okay, here's the deal. You're gonna need to say dot entity because entity entry is a wrapper around the entity itself, right?
Okay.
Yep. Okay, here's the deal. You see how you have an empty line between 53 and 55? You have two options. Either, which is my recommendation, move the broker.post remove to the next line. So now this guy is a two-liner. Now you can have one space between. Or if you keep them as one-liners, collapse them, like to remove the empty line between them. So this way is perfect. What you have right now is just perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So that's it. That's really all that it is. You basically created a contract. You actually did 2 for 1 here. We were going for delete, but we actually need select post by ID. We need select post by ID because when we do a remove async function, we're gonna hit the storage first, try to delete the item, try to retrieve the item. If the item doesn't exist, then we're gonna throw an exception and say not found entity exception. If the item does exist, then we move on and we delete it by calling delete post async. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's create a PR.
All right. Okay. Let's see if I remember this right. It will be
Brokers,
brokers. Yeah.
colon, and then just say delete post. Delete and just do this. Delete and select post because usually I don't do that. Usually it should be only one thing at a time, but we need both of them. So let's do delete and select post. That's it.
All right.
Yep. That's
All
it.
right.
Hit that guy, create a PR, and I'll take it on my side. We'll do a little review, and that's your first piece, my friend. This is great. I'm really excited about this. Okay. So now you want to go to the web and create a PR. Share that with the people, Ricardo, so people can see what
Yeah,
you're doing.
yeah. Always good practice here.
Yep, yes, sir. Yes. Oh, you have no idea. You're in for a really nice ride. You know, things are gonna get really clear and organized and standardized. All we gotta do is just I wouldn't even need to tell you any of these things anymore. You just pick it up and run with it. So,
All right. So it's an pull request,
hmm
new pull request, and I would have to take this guy.
is that the branch? Yeah. So you didn't push it
Yeah.
to your master. You're pushing it to our actual branch, right?
Oh, okay. So
Huh.
yeah, let's
I
see.
wonder if the branch is on the other side. So this compare to, you should have like Ricardo slash brokers. Do you see it anywhere?
No.
Do me a favor. Go to Hassan. I think I gave you direct access. So go to the Hassan slash Tarafu core.
This guy. Okay.
Yeah, go to that guy, and then it's probably gonna tell you. Yeah, there you go. Open your
Oh,
PR
okay.
because you're pushing straight because I gave you like membership access. Yep, to the repository.
Just create, right?
Yep, just create pull request. And when you create it, attach the issues to it. So there's a couple of issues in there. You want to attach the issues to it.
And I believe that was around here. Yeah, linked issues. Yeah.
Yep. So you need to attach two issues actually, right? So there is the select post by ID, which I'm creating literally just right now, and then the other one is delete post.
Yeah.
Yep,
I got it here.
yep, and then try select post, like close it and open it back up. It'll find it for you.
Uh, so post by ID.
Yep, that's the one. You found it.
All right.
All right, I'll take the screen from you. I'll go to this side, and we're gonna be reviewing this code, my friend. So let's see. This guy. Is this your PR? Does this look familiar? Let's see this guy here. Okay,
Seems
let's
like
take.
it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Let's take a look. So this is only one line, and you said okay, CRUD. So create, and create, select by ID and delete. Perfect. And then you added these things. Ah, you have one. So make sure that your Visual Studio, let's go back to your screen real quick. You have a little something that we need to fix real quick, which is basically making sure that the system directives are always on top. So go back to Visual Studio, to your Visual Studio, and let's do something here real quick. Mm. So do this. Go to basically all you got to do is just go to tools and type in options and then type system in there.
All right.
Okay. And then in the system area, click C# advanced. Do you see this place system directives first when sorting usings? Do you see that guy?
Yeah.
Click on that guy.
Okay.
And then click OK. And then right click on your entire solution and then go to code cleanup and just let it do the magic for you. So right click, go to code cleanup and then profile one. Do you see it?
Yeah. I think you can also do it from down here.
Yeah, but it'll do it
Like,
for only one file instead of the entire solution.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Nice.
You should have some changes soon. There you go. Now you can
Okay.
commit this as code drop and you can say, see, that's everything is intentional. Yep, and then you can say code drop and then order business directives. Sorry, system directives. Yep, that's it. Perfect. I'm gonna go back and review your code, my friend. Let's go back here. And let's review your code again. So this guy should say refresh in a second. You pushed it, Ricardo. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Okay, let's do this again. So you have the system, you have this, you have select post by ID, you have delete post async, and that's it. See, sweet, simple PR, no complications. Very straightforward. Something enjoyable for both the people that built it and the people that are reviewing it and the people that will be reading it in the future. And you get your first merge, my friend. Your second merge, actually. This is your second merge. That's all I wanted to show you today. Just a broker. You built a broker, and that broker will be what we're going to be using tomorrow when we're writing the remove post by ID capability in the serves. And then the day after, we're going to build a controller. And that controller will basically allow us to send in an ID, and it will come back to us and tell us maybe the ID is invalid, the ID doesn't correspond to item that exists, or deletion successful. Let me ask you a question. If I have an item in the database and I called the controller twice for ID, what happens for
If
delete?
you if you have a controller that calls an item twice,
Yeah, so I have slash API slash post ID with delete action, and I called it twice. What do you think is gonna happen?
well, at first, I mean, I would think it would delete the first at the first
And
try,
then the
but
second
then
one
the
will throw in
second,
the not found
yeah, it would
exception.
then I found exactly.
That's exactly what we're gonna be testing tomorrow when we finish. Sorry, when we finish the controller. And next time we're gonna be building something called acceptance test, which is a lot more advanced than a unit test. I'll explain
Mm.
to you all of these details in general. Do you have any questions for me about brokers? Anything at all? See how easy and simple it is? It gets a little complicated, but this is a great start. Go ahead.
Well, I'm still curious about that the using var broker inside of that local state because you mentioned something about the state management, right?
Yeah.
Is
So
that
let me
is
tell
that
you.
something? Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
let me tell you what the Entity Framework team wants us to do versus what we like to do, right? So I'm going to explain this on a notepad because it's much easier to kind of explain. This is a great question, and I agree with you. It's kind of it turns heads all the time. Like what do they want us to do? So what the Entity Framework team want us to do is to go and say, okay, here's the deal. You went out there and let's say this is post and this is storage post, right? And this storage post will go like this and say this dot maybe storage broker. I'll even do it from the DB context. So this dot posts, right? Because you're
Mhm.
reading from your broker and you're saying find async and you passed in the ID in here and you got your post, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I want to update this storage post, what's the sensible thing to do? What should I call to update? Like, let's say I went in on the storage post in here and I said storage post.text equal 123 ABC, right? What would be the sensible thing to call to kind of persist that information?
Well, I know you would have to update it, but then use the save as sync
Right. So
after yeah.
right. So you would go and say update, right? Something like this.
Yeah, this past
And
storage post or yeah, whatever we're using to
right. And
make
then you
the
go and
update.
say save changes, right? Like this.
Yeah, yeah,
The Entity Framework team don't want you to do that. They want you to do this.
interesting.
Why? They'll tell you we're already tracking this item. So
Oh,
any
I've
so any
seen
changes you
the
do here,
yeah,
we are already tracking the changes. All you have to do is just say save changes.
yeah. I've seen examples of when they use changes, no tracking, stuff like that. Okay, I never.
And
Okay,
that created a pain in the rear for a lot of engineers
okay,
because of the items that are being tracked and we don't want to track them. So they had to go see a certain design decision will
yeah.
create a series or a sequence of nightmares forever.
Domino effect. Yeah,
Dominoes effect. That's it. That's it. The
yeah,
butterfly effect, right? What people are gonna
yeah,
do is
yeah.
that they're gonna go and say, oh, first of all, it's not intuitive. right? This is why I asked you the question. The sensible thing to do, I have this broker, this liaison that takes care of all the things related to handling basic CRUD operations. I don't want much. I don't want magic. I just want to handle basic CRUD operations.
Mm.
The way the entity framework is designed doesn't adhere to this unit of work mindset. It says, oh, if this item is being tracked, just save all.
No.
So I went and said, heck no. See, that's the thing. The difference is here is that we're in control of that because we're abstracting away these components, right? My business logic, your foundation service doesn't even know there is a thing called entity framework. It doesn't know anything about it, right? Why
Mm.
is that? Because we completely phased that one far, far away. And we said to our foundation service, deal with an iStorage broker, which is mine. It's my local contract, right?
Yeah.
That's the disagreement. Of course, for a bigger platform like using a bigger framework like Entity Framework, sometimes you have to kind of this is the beauty of these brokers. They encapsulate and abstract away the things that you don't necessarily agree with. If I go tomorrow, for instance, Ricardo, and say, I want to use Dapper. I don't want to use the entity framework. I want to use Dapper. Your foundation service and processing service for sure
Yeah.
have no business with it. Why is that? Because we're changing the underlying implementation of a particular concrete class without changing the contract. The contract is the interface, the iStorage broker that gives you, I send you a post and you give me back that post but after you saved it in a database. How you're doing it, what you're calling to do it, none of my business. Completely outside of my scope. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So this is basically, my friend, the story of, and of course, by the way, even my approach has its own kind of negative side effect because now I have to kind of the existing instance of the storage broker. I go and say skip disposal, skip disposing this item. Why is that?
Yeah.
Because when you scope it, when you do using like this, it already disposes this item as soon as you get
Hmm.
out of that scope. But it's much easier and much better way to doing things rather than telling engineers, oh, if it's being tracked, how am I supposed to know if it's being tracked? Oh, you could call the entity framework and ask it whether this item is being tracked or not. Oh my
That
lord.
that would defeat the purpose of the
That will
abstraction.
that will destroy the
Yeah.
purpose because there's no
Yeah.
way you can tell. There's no way, especially if you're shooting this item around between
Yeah.
components and services, just not the right way to do it. So in order for this architecture to work, we basically said let's stay with unit of work. I want something, do the thing, and don't track anything. I don't need you to do anything other than just being a liaison between me and the database. What do you think about that? And this way, we're preventing also the leakage of a design decisions, meaning that if I go and build in my storage broker something called Safe Changes Async and I expose that to my foundation service, that means if I go and flip over to using Dapper or using Oracle or using
Hmm.
MySQL, they don't have this concept of Safe
Yeah.
Changes Async. And
Yep.
now I'm stuck with this leakage of model into my foundation service. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense now.
That's it. That's how we're doing it. Anyway, do you have any other questions for me?
No, I think that's it for today. I think I'm pretty satisfied.
Awesome. The one thing I ask you to do really, really, which is really, really important, so you can actually kind of get the form and the function and be able to kind of understand. Please, 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 by all means, this is all I'm asking you to do is to go into the standard and read this chapter about brokers. It's a little bit long. It's a little long, like this, but it's really, really important that you read about the brokers and understand the mapping and abstraction and all the work that you do. And maybe when you're reading it, you'll find something that needs to be fixed. And if you find something that needs to be fixed, just open up a PR under the name documentation or code rub. Here's a free point for you because you're putting effort, time and effort into it. I'm gonna send you the link in here, and I'm gonna put the link also in our chat in our video. But yeah, this is it. This is you learning the theory and the practice at the same time, but you're also pairing with people to build your career and build your skill set and being able to actually bring about a true value. Like while you're doing all of this, you're building a social media platform, an open source social media platform. How many people out there can come out there and say, hey, I built a social media platform? Not a whole lot, right? Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, anyway, as usual, Ricardo, thank you so very much for joining me today. As usual, this is always fun to hang out with engineers. I promise you, our sessions are going to start getting longer and longer and longer. We won't even have time to, we're going to have to cut it early and move on to the next thing. But other than that, I thank you so much for coming in, and I thank you all for watching us today. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow to start building a foundation service functionality to remove post by ID. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in another video.